So this is just a quick tutorial on how to use the program called Gimkit. So Gimkit is very much like Kahoot or quizzes. It allows you to make questions for students to answer in more of a game-like format. The difference with Gimkit versus those is that Gimkit actually gives students a virtual money in which they can spend on perks, and they can also use those perks to sabotage others. So Gimkit really makes gaming and studying in the classroom really competitive, and students really tend to love Gimkit. Now, the difference with Gimkit versus things like Kahoot is that Gimkit is actually a paid program. They do have a free version, but for me, and in this tutorial, I actually use a paid program so that I can make multiple boards. So once you sign in, if you were to go to gimkit.com, you can hit login, and then you log in with your email or your Google, and then it brings you to this particular page. So it lets you do one of two things. Now, we're going to look at Gimkit Live, but now there is a new tool called Gimkit Inc. for writing. This, I believe, only falls into the yearly paid version. So Gimkit Live is that live learning game. And if you were to click on it, it lets you come up with kits. So you can see here on my particular page, I have a bunch of kits. We use it for a lot of different reviews. So you can have your kits, and they're pre-made. You can put them into assignments. You can put students into classes. So for me, I have my English 9, 10, 11, and 12 with my students that are already in. So it puts, when they log in, it will sometimes just put their name rather than them being able to create a name. They give us news. So the nice thing about Gimkit too is, unlike Kahoot, Gimkit gives you different modes. So in their news format, Gimkit will maybe offer like a zombie mode, and it'll tell you about zombie mode, or holiday mode. Recently, they even did an Among Us mode based on how a lot of students are currently playing the game Among Us. And then there's Kit Collab, which is really cool too, because in Kit Collab, this lets your students create the questions themselves. So it really puts learning into their hands. And then once they submit a question, you accept it or reject it. And then you can use that as your kit. So looking at just regular kits. So if you go to kits, you can search kits that are pre-made, but you can create your own kit. So if you create your own kit, you would just hit new kit and give it a name, your language, your subject, and then you can give it a cover photo. And from here, you can do a few things. You can add a question, which is what is more common. You can create flashcards. So if you're doing vocabulary with students, you can do that. You can do the Kit Collab, where you can have your students creating questions, and maybe you want to add to that to make sure that they're covering certain material. If you have a question bank, you could just go and grab from questions you've already created. Or if you have the questions and the answers in a spreadsheet, you can just upload your spreadsheet, and that makes it pretty easy. For the most part, though, adding a question is probably one of the simpler ways. And it's just super simple. You ask your question. You can add a photo or an audio, which is also really nice for your visual learners. And then you put in your correct answer, your incorrect answer, okay? And then you just add it. And then you can add another question, and you keep going over and over and over until you have all the questions you want. Then you finish the kit. Once you finish a kit, you can do two things. You can play the game live like you would with Kahoot, or you can assign it as homework. So in assigning it as homework, if I were to click on this one first, I can pick my classes. So it'll assign it just to certain students. You can pick your due date and the due time. And then because, again, Gimkit makes them get virtual money, you can mark it as a certain amount. Now, 100,000 seems like a lot, but it is something that I recommend, because if you do less than that, sometimes they can do it in just a few questions because they can buy perks to give them more money quickly. So 100,000 is really ensuring that they're practicing the kit. Then you would just hit create assignment, and it lets you post it directly on to Google Classroom. So if I do my English 9 get, and I go to create assignment, I can copy link, or I can share via Google Classroom. If you have Remind, you can also do it through Remind, their email or their Microsoft Teams. So it makes it really easy to assign work. Now, they're not working with each other if they're doing the homework version. Now, if I were to go back to Gimkit, say I want to play, you can also edit. So you could click on the dots and hit edit. You can find reports, which I can show you later. So say I want to play it live, I would hit play live. I can present it on my smartboard. And now you get to select your game mode. So again, they have a bunch of different modes. This is the Among Us mode. The classic mode looks very much like Kahoot. Your team mode, so you can put your students into teams. Humans versus zombies. Infinity mode, where they have to collect these stones. Super rich mode, so they want to have a lot of money. A boss battle is where you can have one against the rest. This is really fun if you want to get involved in the game as well, because students really love to verse their teacher. Hidden mode, where they don't know who's in the lead. And then drain mode, where right now your balance is constantly draining and you have to try to catch up. So for classic mode, I would just do this. It gives you a lot of really great options as well. So you can put the amount of time. So say you're doing this just as a do now and you don't want to spend too much time on the practice, you can limit the time to 5 minutes. You could do a race where all players race to be the first one to reach a certain cash goal, or then all in, where you want all your players to try to meet a mass amount of money. So those are different modes. In terms of class, you can have them enter their own names, or you can put, like I said, the class. So if you don't want any inappropriate names or you want to know what their results are, so you can collect the data and you want to use their actual names, that's a good spot. They can start with a certain amount of money, or you can have them start with no money at all. So maybe for like the first few times that you use it, you give them a bit of money so they can kind of learn how to use the perks. And then there's a handicap where your players can't go under a certain amount. So if you're concerned about some of your other students who are struggling, if you give them a certain amount that they can't go under, that kind of helps boost motivation and things of that nature. You can do answer check, where they can view. So if they get it wrong, they can view the correct answer. There's music that'll play in the background. You can allow them to do a clapping feature at the end so they can clap. Joining in late. So if you want to allow students to join in as they finish an assignment or something like that, you can open up that. And then again, there's power-ups and themes. Power-ups can sabotage each other. So if you're worried about students maybe sabotaging each other too much and the learning environment being hindered because of that, you might want to do clean power-ups only, where they can't hurt each other. Once you've figured out how you want to set up the game, you would just hit continue, and it's very, very much like Kahoot. They would go to gimkit.com/live, they put in their game code, and either their name will pop up if you put it in the settings, or they'll set their name. As they're waiting, it lets them draw on the screen. So as they're waiting for their students on their end, they can draw on the screen. Once everyone logs in, you can hit start game. From the start game mode, you'll see who's in the lead, and you can see what questions are kind of being answered correctly versus what questions are being answered incorrectly per student. So it kind of gives you like a chart. So that's how to kind of just set up a game. Now say you finish the game and now you want to see what your student data is. If you go to your kit and you click on the dots, you can hit reports. Now at the end of a game, it also gives you these reports, but say you're trying to go back in. From here, I can see some information. I can see when my last game was and my players, and that they had a 90% here. Versus 2 months ago when we played it, there were 5 players and they had 87% in that case. I can also, from here, click on it, I believe, and I can look at my reports via here, so you can find it in that spot as well. And that's kind of the basis of it. Now, after you play a game, though, it does give you some more data, and then from there, I believe you can click per student and see what they're getting right and what they're getting incorrect, which is also kind of nice, especially because you can print it and then compare like when they do a review versus when they don't, things of that nature to really get that data. And that's kind of the basics of creating a kit on Gimkit and using it in play mode. There'll be another video showing it from a student example, what that whole situation would look like. So keep an eye out for that video as well. Bye.